Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Canadians Abroad. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming. I will be joined by my colleague Alex Gangue-Ruzic and Peter Galindo, and we'll be sitting down to discuss every single Canadian who won silverware abroad in the 2022-2023 season. So hopefully you guys are excited to celebrate these talented Canadians, and if you are, let's get into the episode now. Alright guys, so 20 Canadian men's national team and women's national team players won silverware abroad during the 2022-2023 season. So we're going to show them how proud we are and break down everyone that they won. And we're going to start with Alistair Johnston, who won 3 trophies. Alex, he's only been there for about 6 or so months. How impressive was this start and the fact that he's celebrating 3 trophies in half a season with Celtic?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly the best case scenario. I think pretty much when he arrived at Celtic, it was to get minutes, to, stake a claim to be a starter, and it was to win silverware. So the fact that he's ticked off all those boxes so emphatically, winning the Scottish Premiership, winning the Scottish Cup with a great performance as well, and then the Scottish League Cup, of course, that one was special. They beat Rangers in the finals, all with another great performance from Alistair Johnston. I mean, what more could you want from him in his first season?
Yeah, and the nice thing is that he's not the only player to win 3 trophies. There's 2 others, but Peter, we're going to go to you for Stefan Eustaquio. Now, Eustaquio, when he made his move over to Porto, had to fight his way into the starting 11, and this season went pretty well for him. He was very comfortable, started in that last final that he just won. So he won 3 trophies as well. What are your thoughts on his overall season?
Just the fact that he became an everyday player for one of the top clubs in Europe, I think is a massive accomplishment and fully well-deserved for Stefan Eustaquio, because he was always capable of playing at this level, right? Even dating back to his Pashus days, dating back to his Cruz Azul days before he got hurt, he always had that potential. And so the fact that he wins a ton of trophies upon getting there, obviously not as a starter, but then ends up building on that trophy cabinet as a proper starter, and while showing his completeness the entire time, I think is just a testament to the quality of player that he is, quite frankly.
Another big thing that I liked from Eustaquio's game this season is that he was also producing, scoring goals, getting assists, and he was doing it in big games, wasn't he, Alex?
Yeah, and that was the most impressive thing to see, because like Peter mentioned, we've always seen the potential, we've always seen the quality, especially as a holding midfielder more in his earlier days. But as he mentioned earlier in the season, that he has the stamina, he has the skills to influence games in other ways, and that was what Sergio Conceição told him to do this year, to go take on those different responsibilities. And the fact that he scored some huge goals in that Taça da Liga run, including in the final a banger to help them secure the trophy, as well as some huge goals in games like the Champions League, in the league. That was also immense to see him not just contributing, but also contributing in the biggest of games.
Yeah, it's always difficult with transfers, especially we've seen some Canadian transfers work out and not work out. So the fact that he made that big move and wasn't getting those minutes right away made me a little bit nervous, but he took a giant step and will definitely be an important player for Canada come the summer in their 2 tournaments. But he wasn't the only player to win 3 pieces of silverware in Portugal this season, as Cloe Lacasse did so as well with Benfica. Alex, how impressive was her season?
Yeah, well, this was probably Cloe Lacasse's best season yet, so it's not surprising to see all the hardware that it has come with it. She obviously had her most productive season, goals and assists wise, across all competitions. She had that huge run in the Champions League where she still finished as one of the top 3 goal scorers in the competition, despite not playing any knockout games, which is just astounding. And then, of course, all the silverware itself, it speaks for itself. They won the league, they won the Taça da Liga, they won the Super Cup. They just missed out in the semifinals, though, of the Taça de Portugal, which is actually a great Canadian story we'll dive into later. But besides that, it was pretty much a perfect season domestically for Lacasse, and the trophies show it.
And now we're going to move on to players that have won 2 trophies, starting with Vanessa Gilles. Now, I did watch the Angel City FC documentary, highly recommend it. Gilles was a focal point of that, and she was a very humorous person to watch. But she moved on from Angel City FC, went to Lyon, and won 2 pieces of silverware. It's a tough task to replace a player like Khadijah Buchanan at Lyon, but Peter, I think she did a pretty good job, didn't she?
Replace one Canadian with another Canadian. That's clearly the solution, isn't it? She was fantastic. And she also had a little bit of hardship too, just getting hurt and having to come back and regain her form as well. And so the fact that she was able to do that while still playing with the pressure that comes with playing for Lyon and then winning trophies on top of that, that's great news for herself. That's great news for Lyon. And then if you look ahead to the World Cup coming up, it's also big for her and the team, because obviously if she comes in with that confidence, that taste of success, that can be very much like a drug.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you look at how proud we are of Gilles winning those 2 trophies. And it's weird that we're going to not play down Alphonso Davies' 2 trophies, because it's weird at this point. He's so young and he's just continues to win trophies, has not lost the Bundesliga title yet since going to Bayern. I think it's just because Bayern's season was so disappointing in general. They probably didn't deserve to win the title. Davies had a good season, but then with the change of managers, Tuchel coming in, he still did win 2 trophies, the Bundesliga title, like I mentioned, and of course the Super Cup. But Alex, it didn't feel the same. Like for example, when he won, the 5 the one year, the big look at got the 5. I don't know. Am I being too harsh, or am I playing down the fact that he only won 2?
Well, even it was the sextuple, really, if you count the Super Cups they won the next year. But I guess for a player, if your bad years leaves you winning a league title and winning a Super Cup, you're in a pretty good position as a player. Like, it is one where, yes, it wasn't the season that Bayern should have had. I think it's something where they had unfinished business in the Champions League. Look, they were up against a Manchester City juggernaut. Not saying they should have won, but they were undefeated in the Champions League. They had a coach that was clearly working. You would have loved to see Nagelsmann get a crack at that City team. And then ditto, in the Pokal, it's something where, you would have loved to see Nagelsmann finish what he started. They were on a great run of the Pokal, and he gets fired right before, that crucial, I want to say, quarterfinal off the top of my head. Might have been even the round of 16. Those you just would have loved to see what they could have done in those 2 competitions. So it's one where, look, winning a league title is never anything to scoff at, especially when you win it in the 89th minute of a game. Apologies, Josh, for obviously what happened with Dortmund in that race. But it's something where if you're Davies, you do want to build off this and get back to winning those sorts of cups, those sorts of doing well in Europe. Because for a club of Bayern's standard, that's what they have to do. The Bundesliga feels just like an obligation.
Yeah, and I just feel like the season rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, just because Bayern were playing so well, I thought, under Nagelsmann, especially Davies in that system, and it just kind of seemed like they blew it up for no reason, but were somehow rewarded for it, I guess, at the end in an undeserving way. It was just weird, but Davies, we're proud of you. We just, hopefully next season you can keep building on that. But moving on to a player who I think was probably going to be a little disappointed because of the injury, but he is a hero in Los Angeles. That's Maxime Crepeau. Obviously has won the Supporters Shield in 2022 as well as the MLS Cup, but it was a sacrifice to win that trophy because he obviously had that serious leg break in the final. He obviously had to watch on now as LAFC just lost in the CONCACAF Champions League final, not the Champions Cup. That will change soon. But Peter, what were your thoughts on Crepeau's 2022 season?
The fact that he went from a team in Vancouver where he clearly had a lot of volume of shots and saves to a side where clearly that wasn't as big of an issue, but where you have to still be locked in mentally because you may not be called upon as often. You have to still build from the back. You still have to do all of these little things that sometimes go unnoticed when you are a goalkeeper for a top side in a league. And I think he settled in very seamlessly, obviously, because they don't get to MLS Cup without Crepeau's goalkeeping. That was their Achilles heel prior to winning that MLS Cup, was the goalkeeping position. So Crepeau comes in, is able to adjust his role from being just pelted with shots every single week to being more of a game manager and just being that big game goalkeeper that you expected to see. And he showed flashes of that with Canada when he was called upon during the qualifiers and at the Gold Cup. But the fact that he showed that at club level, then made the ultimate sacrifice to keep the team's MLS Cup hopes alive, just is a testament to the man he is as well as the goalkeeper that he is. And the fact that he's now nearing a return is obviously very good news on that front too, because he can maybe pick up where he left off.
Yeah, the ultimate sacrifice. You said it. It speaks volumes to the character, and we wish him a very quick recovery, and he is almost back. But moving along back to the women's side of things, Jessie Fleming, Khadijah Buchanan won 2 trophies together for Chelsea in England. Alex, what did you make of their season, especially because this was Buchanan's big move over to England. How do you think she did?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I feel like on one side, this is a very incredible season if you look at it. It almost doesn't settle in until you look back and you look at everything that this Chelsea side accomplished with Kadisha Buchanan in her first year playing a very big role, and Jessie Fleming as well. There was maybe a bit more up and down than the prior season, but it was still, she ended up playing a big role in some of their biggest games. Look, they won the league. You know, they're on a very good run of consecutive league titles there. That's obviously immense. They won an FA Cup, which, you know, historically is usually the bigger of the two cups that are available in England. They lost in the League Cup final, so it's not like they did bad in the other cup either. Then you add in that they went to the semifinals of the Champions League, you know, and only fell to the eventual champions, you know, in a very tightly contested tie. Like, what more could you want, really? It feels like for them, the fact that you look at this season, you look at Buchanan, like, oh, she probably has another level to hit to get back to that peak she had at Lyon when she was entrusted and entrenched in that system. You look at Fleming as well, being like, okay, overall she ended up having a pretty good season, but it feels like she has another gear to hit. That's exciting to think that, okay, this is a team that if they, you know, build and add the right pieces, which they look to be doing, they could very well go for a quartet next year, a treble, and I think that's exciting to imagine that Fleming, Buchanan, hey, maybe Ashley Lawrence too, if all signs seem to be leaning that way, could be on track for something of that magnitude. So congrats to them. It was a very good season. It's just exciting to see the potential that's still there for more.
Yeah, you stole my thought there. I was going to mention there may be another Canadian on way, but yeah, very successful season for both of them, and it would be very cool to see, I think, Ashley Lawrence join up and make 3 very talented Canadians playing for Chelsea. But Peter, I'm throwing you another keeper. I'm throwing you Milan Borjan, the final Canadian to win 2 pieces of silverware in Europe, and that, or I guess abroad. But Milan Borjan, it's what you expect. His side, Red Star, are expected to win these trophies. What did you make of his season, especially with the news that he may be replaced?
Yeah, and he was probably going to get replaced a year or two ago and then ultimately stayed and continued to win trophies and kept his place. So again, this is the bare minimum for a club like Red Star Belgrade, in that it's not just expected to win trophies, it's you got to win them convincingly a lot of the time too. And that's exactly what they did domestically anyways. When it came to the league title, just running away with the league as they often have done over the past couple of years. And I find it very peculiar how you see his role with Red Star and then the role he plays with Canada. They can sometimes be very contrasting, because with Red Star, he's asked to maybe be a little bit more aggressive than he is with Canada. And then you see when he plays for Canada, just the sheer number of quality saves he can pull off. Whereas with Red Star, can be prone to more errors because he's having to come off his line, which he's not comfortable doing. But that being said, still ended up obviously having a solid enough year to the point where he was the number 1 for a double winning side. And now his future could be maybe looking towards greener pastures.
Moving on now to our quick hit section of the episode, and we are going to start with players who only won 1 piece of silverware this season, and we're going to start with Samuel Adekubi, who, after making his move to Galatasaray, picked up the Turkish Super League. It was obviously a very difficult campaign for Adekubi with everything that happened with Hatayspor, but it was a beautiful ending for such a talented player.
Meanwhile, over in Portugal, as mentioned, Mary Yasmin Alidou's Famalicão was that team that upset Cloe Lacasse's Benfica in the semifinals and ended up winning the entire Taça de Portugal. This is an immense achievement in such a top-heavy league, and credit has to be given for Alidou's role in that.
In Italy, Giulia Grosso and Juventus won the Coppa Italia. Now, Grosso did do very well domestically, 3 goals, 5 assists. So the fact that she was also able to cap off that season with a trophy, clearly testament to what a solid season it was. And in England, Sabrina D'Angelo was able to capture the League Cup with Arsenal in her first campaign and establish herself as a reliable backup, so a solid accomplishment for her in her first season with the Gunners.
Down south in the US, there were a fair few Canadian trophy winners in last year's NWSL season. On both sides of the Cascadia Derby, funny enough, for the OL Reign, they ended up winning the Supporters' Shield, which obviously was great news for Queen and Jordan Hoytema, who played big roles for the Reign in the regular season. But then in the playoffs, it was their rivals, the Portland Thorns, who claimed it all, with Janine Becky and Christine Sinclair also playing big roles. It was Sinclair adding a 3rd NWSL championship.
Before the 2022-2023 season kicked off in Belgium, Tajon Buchanan and Kyle Larin picked up the Belgian Super Cup as Club Brugge won 1-0 against Ghent.
And closing out, Tesho Akindele, just before retiring from professional soccer, was able to capture a U.S. Open Cup with Orlando. He was an 83rd minute substitute in the final, but a lovely accomplishment for one of the good guys in Canadian soccer.
Those were all some fantastic achievements for our Canadians playing abroad this season. Their attention will now shift towards the summer's tournaments, and we will be here to cover it. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for in this edition of Canadians Abroad. I really hope you all enjoyed the episode, and if you did, be sure to tune in for next week's update.